Okay, I think we're recording. Good deal. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mark's RC. Thanks for coming by. If you clicked on this video, you clicked on this video because you're probably a RC four-wheel drive Gelande II 118 owner, and you want to know what this shock modification is all about. You've probably had one of these for a while. Maybe you've just gotten one. You're kind of stumped on why there are no options out there to be able to adjust the suspension. There really exists no aftermarket whatsoever for these, other than just like buying bumpers, tires, a couple of other shock options and stuff like that, which really don't give you a whole lot of travel. The Uncle Emus, or excuse me, Old Man Emus, they do give you a little bit more travel than say like what the stock black shocks do, but there and again, you're still not getting that kind of function and just simply just the options available to you with the wealth of other crawlers out there that are in this scale, in this range. And I think it's kind of, unfortunately, I think it's kind of sad because I think it's really a good platform that RC four-wheel drive has, that they really could benefit by doing a little bit more with it if they really wanted to kind of focus you know, some efforts on this, because I know that there are a lot of people out there that have these, and I think there are people that have these that have given up on them, that want to sell them because they're just nothing for them, and they see all of these other scale options coming out and they're like, wow, you know, if I could get all these wheels and tires, if I could do this shock modification, or if I could get this set up or this option or this thing and that thing and blah blah blah, and just deck it all out, then maybe I would really, you know, be into this. But no, I can't, so I'm just going to totally switch platforms, and then I'm just going to sell this on Facebook for, you know, $100. For $219, I think that's what these are retailing for right now. I've bought 2 used ones, so I don't even know. You get an all-metal chassis. You get all-metal frame links. I just discovered that the transmission in this actually has an adjustable slip clutch. I was having problems. That's why this is sitting on the bench this morning right now as it is, and I'll get to the shock mount mod later. It's coming, I promise. But anyway, I've just been going through this thing. I bought it at least a year ago, I'd say, probably. And it's just sat around forever, and I haven't done anything with it. I ran it for a couple times and then just parked it. And then I got another 118 Gelande II D90, which I really liked a lot. And so I did a bunch of switching of parts around and stuff like that, a couple of modifications and everything. I got that truck running about as good as I could. And anyway, I had both of these out one day, and through numerous water crossings, the D90 unfortunately gave up its ESC radio combo, that which I harvested out of the Jeep here, and put it into the D90 and continued to run the D90. Now, this is a pretty nice setup. I've gone and put the extra bumper on, you know, or the aftermarket, whatever you want to say, and it's got the stinger on the front. Forgive this kind of state of disarray right now, because it really is being worked on in the moment. And then, since I had a spare electronics setup sitting around, which included transmitter and radio ESC combo, this is actually a setup from an MN99 Defender. I don't know if any of you guys that would be watching this for RC four-wheel drive are even remotely at all familiar with what MN RC is all about, but it's a cheap low-grade RC that you can kind of mod up to be almost equivalent to what, you know, say something like this would be equivalent to out of the box for a couple $100 later. Anyway, what we're looking at here is something that I just have sat and wondered how I could really get this thing to function and work like all of the other ones that are sitting on the shelf that are built essentially the same way. But what really happens here is, all of you Gelande II 110 owners know that everything is limited by this particular shock hoop mounting system on the top. You have no options to be able to move that from one side to the other to be able to angle your shocks. But again, you're not allowed any forward movement at all in order to be able to gain any more angular articulation. And this is something that I've looked at this and looked at this and looked at this a million times over, and tried to figure out what could I do to make even just a little bit of flex. A few months. Okay, this is the actual how-to, where I take this thing apart on camera and show you what this modification is all about. So let me and grab some tools. You're going to need 2 bolts. You're going to do away with a bunch of hardware here. You won't need a whole lot of what's coming off that won't need to go back on, except for the wheel and the shock. But you're going to be doing away with the shock hoop. You're going to be doing away with a couple of other longer bolts that just simply won't be needed at this point. You will, however, if I can grab a caliper. These M1s are, let's see, you've got 10 millimeters of thread depth on the short one. I believe I'm going to be looking at about 15 millimeters of thread on the long one that you will need as well. Now, cap screws, Allens, whichever you like to use, it doesn't matter at all. If you have trouble finding anything, stuff is available online. So, measuring this next one here, you want, this actually says about 14.5, maybe even 14 millimeters of thread depth. I'll call it 15, I'm sure that's just a fluke, but at least say 14 millimeters of thread depth should be long enough to be able to capture the other side of what it is that we're doing here. Go ahead and remove your rear wheel. Should be a 4 millimeter hex. You can go and set that aside for a minute. Now that your wheel's freed up, what you're going to want to do is undo the top of the shock. It's an M1.5. And that's one of those bolts that you're not going to need again. What do? And again, you can just get rid of that. That's not one you're going to need. Oops. So these shocks are okay. They just don't compress all the way. You can remedy that by cutting away some of the coil, but then you end up losing a bunch of rebound. You already kind of lose a bunch anyway. But needless to say, I mean, they're not bad shocks. You just don't have a whole ton of travel. Let's get rid of the shock hoop. That's simply not going to be necessary anymore. You can sell those right on Facebook Marketplace to somebody who needs shock hoops. I don't know who would need shock hoops, but you probably could do them. And you want the side that's a little fatter, I feel. You want that to the inside. That way it's shouldered with the spacer. Now let me tell you where these spacers, let me pause for just a second. These spacers that we're using were harvested from the inside where these frame links go, because that's simply no longer needed. This frame link, the spacer right here, is honestly, it's an extra. Even in this position, mounted all the way to the inside, you don't have to worry about contact here. This never makes contact with the frame rails. Even in the most extreme articulation situation, it's millimeters away from making contact. So you can remove those spacers right there, and that's the key to making this modification really work. So what you do, go ahead and send that through that bolt hole. And I personally like to use the vinyl lock nuts. They hold on really well without Loctite. If you do decide to be crazy and Loctite these, have fun getting those undone. They're great. It's a good time. And if I could find my mini pair of pliers. So we're just going to kind of spin this down for a minute. Now, of course I picked the side that's closest to the differential to undo the screw. If you're careful and you're lucky, you can kind of get that started just by angling that hex in there. These don't come from the factory super tight. I've never torqued these down myself, so this is what you're seeing. That was literally probably the first time that's ever been undone from there. There we go. Now that you have that frame link freed up, you can discard of that bolt as well. You no longer need that. Now, here is where your short cap screw, if I can find where I put that. Okay, this is where your 10 centimeter or your 10 millimeter cap screw is going to come in handy. Now this is a Phillips tip, so I'll have to switch screwdrivers for this one. And again, on these shocks, they have a thicker flange on one side and a thinner flange on the other. I would probably want these kind of spaced a little bit further apart, a little bit more offset distance from the frame link itself. So take that. Now you're going to have about, that's about 3 millimeters. There's probably about 6 threads or so to be able to purchase here. That's a really good amount of thread to be able to catch this for the scale. I mean, that's going to put it roughly halfway back into the carrier bracket, which is very strong. And if you really want to solidify that, make sure it's not going to go anywhere, go ahead and just hit it with a little bit of thread lock and you'll be fine. So let's grab our Phillips screwdriver and we're just going to put that very carefully into that spot. And that is the modification as you see it. Let me throw the wheel back on here now. I'm pretty excited about this mod, actually. It's been something that I've kind of really been scratching my head over for a very long time. You know, like 116 and stuff, and I think I had, you know, like my 110s at that point. You know, maybe not RC four-wheel drive ones, but these were my first RC four-wheel drive vehicles. And oh my gosh, look at how much more that articulates. I mean, honestly, if you do know these rigs and you know like what you feel like they should be capable of, but they just don't seem to quite get it there half the time, this is really going to be one of those modifications that kind of changes how this truck runs for you, I think. I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty darn good. It could probably get a little bit more. I'll figure out a way to get there. But I think right now I'm pretty pleased with the work that's been done here. And even with adding that little bit of extra articulation, you'll see that that does not make contact with the bumper there. You're good and clear. You don't have. So that's that. I will make sense out of all of this mess. I'll get the battery tray back in there. I'll show you what it all looks like here in just a second. I'll be back in a minute. After a great deal of work throughout the day today on this little 118, I finally have it pretty much ready to go. What I did, to recap, I've done an angled shock mod in the back. Anyone who has an SCX24 or pretty much any other crawler, you know that if you angle your shocks, you know, towards the center, you get an incredible increase in articulation. And with these Gelande II little 118 chassis, they have these really limiting single position shock hoops. And so what I decided to do was just eliminate that and just aimed for the next lower hole on the chassis here, more forward. And what I think that's done was give it, it's not much, you know, I mean, if 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch more articulation corner to corner, you know, I'd be surprised. But it did help a lot, and it really softened up the back end. It really helps seat that a lot better. So I think what I wanted to do was just kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what that is sort of driving like now. I did a couple of tests here a few seconds ago, and I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure there's no way that I would have ever been able to drive up on this rock like that with this setup the way that it was before. And for a few different reasons. Number one, the wheels were never weighted like they are now, and there's not much weight in them. There's only 25 grams. They only weigh 25 grams each. But that's because they're the plastic beadlock hubs. But I put lead tape in them last night, and then I think that really helped a lot with its overall stability. Now, turning around here is a little bit of a challenge, but needless to say, like I said, I really don't think that any of what you just witnessed right there would have been possible with this setup the way that it was. It's just a much more crawler-friendly crawler. It's got now crawl control about it, and it's got crawl geometry. It's got crawl weighting, you know. So it feels to me like it's probably going to do a lot better. And to catch you up too, this is for the Rubicon, which I am going to put the body back on, and I'll do another quick test run here in just a few minutes. I just wanted to do a quick run without the body just to show you what it is doing. And it's, you know, it's not crazy. It's not like you're getting, you know, 3 inches of articulation like you would with an SCX24, you know, after a bunch of crazy mods and spending hundreds of dollars to get all of that done. I have literally bought nothing for this. I had some spare M1 screws, which, you know, 2 longer screws on the top, and relocated some stuff here on the bottom. Basically took those from the original shock mount points, you know, that you have on the mini Yoda 2s, and then I decided to just put the lower part of the shock mount here on the truss carrier here, right where your lower link catches. And so that really, like I said, I think that really just softened up the back end of this thing a bunch. And so I hope that maybe I'll have, you know, another crawler to kind of mess around with. Okay, so this thing's back together. It's running really, really well. I'm very happy that I took the time to do all the modifications to it that I did. Not only is it running really well, I think it looks really good with these wheels and tires. I'm glad I put foams inside of them, and I'm also really glad that I weighted them as well. But let me do a little kitchen crawl here for you on my little tabletop course. And this is why I have this set up, so whenever I'm done working on stuff, I can just sort of turn things on and just see what it's going to do. It's not a perfect truck, you know. It's still quirky, and part of it is too, this is running MN electronics in you know, a crawler atmosphere. You know, it walks right up stuff. You know, that's pretty fun. What you end up losing is a little bit of that low speed control. I just keep having to feather the trigger just a little bit, you know, if I want movement at all. I can't really get on the accelerator and keep accelerating. I just have to do it in essentially short little bursts, or this thing will just take right off. It's got plenty of power, just like you see right there. It'll just get up and go. These tiny little RC four-wheel drive motors that come in these things are no joke, and the way that they're geared, they really do a great job of running a vehicle this size, you know, all things considered. I'm pretty impressed, and I think I'm going to definitely have this be part of my regular crew. So there you have it, folks. That's the Gelande II 118 angled shock modification. You know, I think it helps. I really do think that it makes a major difference in how this thing seems to handle. I don't know, sold as trail trucks / rock crawlers, so they shouldn't be able to do those types of things. But a lot of times when you put them in situations, they don't do those things. You really struggle with how they perform. And it gets frustrating in the hobby because you just keep trying thing after thing, and your truck just never runs right. And so, you know, I see why people buy these, and they get unhappy with their performance, and they just move on to something else, and these just end up, you know, just like I said earlier, they end up on Facebook Marketplace for $150. And if you're willing to buy them and you know, kind of put a little bit of extra time into them, you know, they're not SCX24s. They were never designed to be. These came out years before the SCX24 platform ever hit the streets. But it is most unfortunate that these somehow just missed the mark on being the crawler that everybody really, really liked. I mean, come on, look at this. Look at this articulation that I'm getting from here to here, just sitting in this one particular spot. I can't hit the gate. It's, I don't know, folks. I think I finally kind of stumbled onto something here. So if you like this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you like this kind of content, I upload quite a few videos every week, mostly running content. But now that the winter season has rolled around, I will be getting back into doing a little bit more of these modification types. And you know, you get to see me kind of crawl around on my kitchen table after I'm done you know, doing some tweaking, stuff like that. And so, anyway, thanks everybody so much for watching, and take care out there. We'll see you on the next one.